everyone, so today's video is another video for Autism Acceptance Month. This time it's a video all about my favorite books with autistic main characters. Now, I think one of my subscribers actually asked me to do this video. I can't actually remember if I came up with this idea myself or if one of you guys asked it. But yeah, if it was one of you guys, thank you for this video idea. And let's just get straight into the books, I guess, because I don't really have anything else to say. So yeah, let's just get straight into my favorite books with autistic main characters. The first book that I'm going to mention is Queens of Geek. Now, the reason why I mentioned this book first is, one, because it was the first book on my pile of books that I want to talk about today, but also because this book was the first book that I ever read with an autistic main character who is a girl. I had never read that before, and whenever I heard of autism, I always saw it being represented as this male thing that only guys could have it, and the guys really like cars usually, and they're very smart and have high IQs, and so I never really envisioned myself as being autistic because of the way that society portrayed autism. And this book was one of the first books I read with an autistic main character who is a girl. Now, there are two main characters in this book, I think. I can't actually remember, but one of them is autistic, and I actually reread this book last year for Autism Acceptance Month, I think, and I still really enjoyed it. I expected to enjoy it less than I did when I read it a couple years ago. I think I read it in 2017, before I was diagnosed with autism, and then I decided to reread it now that I was actually diagnosed. And I still really liked it. I still think the autism representation is quite good. And yeah, the author themselves is also autistic. And I actually follow them on Instagram. And I'm pretty sure they also use a cane to walk. Which I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they do. Which I might be confusing them with another author, but I don't think I am. So yeah, we love to see another autistic person who uses a cane as a mobility aid. So yeah. Like I said, this book has good representation, not only like autism representation, but also anxiety representation. It also has multiple people of color. I can't remember exactly who. The main character who's autistic is white, and I think the other main character is a person of color. I think they're Asian. I might be wrong on that, because I can't remember a lot from that character because I was so focused on the autistic one. But yeah, I think the other main character is Asian. I might be wrong. But yeah, it has good representation in my opinion. It also has a sapphic relationship. So yeah, this is obviously one of my favorite books with an autistic main character, because it's one of the books that kind of made me realize that autistic women exist and that I could potentially be one of them, which I actually turned out to be one of them. So yeah, this is my first recommendation. Then the second book, or series rather, that I'm going to talk about is the Brown Sisters series. Now I'm holding up the last book, which is the one with very specific autism representation, where it's actually set on paper that it has autism representation, but I'm one of the people who believes that all three of the Brown sisters, which is the main characters in these books, they are the three Brown sisters, and this one, as you can tell, follows Eve Brown, and I am one of the people who believes that all three Brown sisters are autistic. Now, I know that's probably not a very popular opinion, but autism comes in many different shapes and sizes, and you know, it is after all a spectrum. So for people to be I don't think they're autistic, they don't do this or this, and I'm that's not how autism works. So yeah, I'm one of the people who believes that all three books have autism representation, but this is the one that actually shows it on paper. It actually says the words autism. So yeah, this is the book that I will recommend. I really like this. Obviously, you can tell from the tabs that are in it. I really enjoyed it. It's a really good book. The other two books are also really good. The first book has chronic pain representation, and the second book has anxiety representation. So the other two books also have very great representation, and yeah, I recommend it. Then the next book that I'm going to talk about and the book that I'm going to mention after this one are both books that you guys are probably already expecting me to talk about if you've watched my channel for a while, especially if you've heard me talk about autism representation. You've definitely heard me talk about these books, but I am going to mention them again because I will not stop talking about them because I needed these books when I was younger. And if I can push one person to read these books, then I will have done my job. So yeah, I am once again going to talk about A Kind of Spark, which again, yes, I talk about this book often, but it has great autism representation. It's a middle grade, so it's made for younger readers, but like if you're my age or older, you can obviously also read it and still enjoy it, as you can tell from the tabs. Like I already said, this is the kind of book that I needed when I was younger, even though I doubt that I would have been diagnosed at that age because of the way that people don't really notice that you're autistic unless you're like a little boy who really likes trains. So yeah, I doubt I would have been diagnosed even if I had this book to like guide me along the right path to be diagnosed. But yeah, this book would have still really helped me when I was younger, because when I was younger, I still obviously already knew that I was different from the other kids. And this book would have really helped me. It talks about some difficult subjects, actually. It talks about how a lot of people, especially like women who were seen as like witches and who were like, you know, burned and stuff like that and thrown into rivers, how a lot of them were probably autistic women. And, you know, the things that they saw these people do and the things that they saw as like strange and weird and witchcraft, those were just like things that autistic people do naturally, like not making a lot of eye contact, not speaking to a lot of people, isolating themselves if they can't find people that actually, you know, love them and care for them for who they are, stuff like that. So yeah, this book talks about that. It talks about how the main character, who's like a little girl, how she realizes she likely would have been, you know, killed if she was born during that time because of the fact that she's autistic, and she would have been seen as a witch and, you know, killed. And that's obviously a very difficult subject to talk about and to read about, but it's done in a very good way. And it's done in a way where like it makes you sad to read it, but it also makes you aware of it. And I feel like, again, this is just like a book that would have really helped me when I was younger. And even now, when I read it last year, like it still really helped me. I really want to reread this book in April, actually, just because like I want to like read a book with good autism representation again, because there's not really a lot of those out there. And again, this book and the other books on this list are like some of the few books I feel like with good autism representation. And it says a lot that like they're all written by autistic authors, which that just shows that like if you want to read a book about an autistic person, buy it from an autistic author. Don't, you know, buy a book from someone who just has a nephew who's autistic, because likely that won't have good autism representation. So yeah, buy books by autistic authors. All of the books on this list are by autistic authors. So yeah, go buy them if you haven't yet, I guess, to support autistic authors. So yeah, let's just move on from this book and talk about the author's other book. But I won't talk about it for as long because I feel like I've talked about these books enough. So yeah. So the author's other book with an autistic main character is Show Us Who You Are. Now, this book, like I already said, also has autism representation. It also has representation for ADHD. And once again, it does talk about some more dark subjects. Like, for example, in the previous book, it was like witches and like why they were murdered and stuff like that. And in this book, they talk about eugenics, which is obviously a very heavy subject. Hopefully everyone knows what eugenics is. But yeah, this book talks about eugenics, but once again, it's a middle grade, so it's very much like talked about in a way that like that age category would understand what eugenics is and why it's bad. So yeah, I really like the way that they talked about eugenics in this book, and again, the way that it's like fit for the age category and the way that they explain it. And it made me cry multiple times. It's a really good book. I also want to reread it, but it is a little bit bigger. And I don't know when I'm gonna reread it, but probably not in April, because I kind of want to focus on books I haven't read yet. but I will reread this someday, just not this year probably. But yeah, I also really enjoyed this book. Again, good representation, written by an autistic author, so go support them. And again, go support every single author that I talk about in this video, because they're all autistic authors. So yeah. Then the next book on this list is actually the only book that I don't own physically, but I do really want to buy it. It's just quite expensive nowadays, and it is quite a short book, so I don't want to spend too much money on it, even though I do really like it. And that book is Convenience Store Woman. Now, this book is originally in Japanese, but it's translated, and it's really good. The author obviously is also autistic, which I feel like I'm correct in that. I don't know for sure because so little people talk about it. Even though her books are quite like popular, people still see the main character in this book, who is the autistic one. They still see her as just like this quirky character that's just a bit weird. And I'm just reading all of those comments being like, y'all realize that she's autistic, right? Like, she's not some quirky, weird character, she's autistic. And like, again, because of that, I'm just not 100% sure if she's supposed to be written as autistic. I'm like 99% sure she is, because I've heard other autistic people talk about the fact that she's supposed to be an autistic character who's just not diagnosed, but she is autistic. And so is the author. So yeah, I don't know why people are just like not acknowledging that. I mean, I know why people are not acknowledging it, because y'all don't like autistic people that much. But still, like, that's why it's on this list. It has an autistic main character. The book's really good. It talks about, again, some slightly heavier subjects, like very like bad family dynamics and bad relationships and stuff like that. But it is still really good in my opinion. And the ending of this book actually made me cry a bit, which I didn't expect that. But I was just like really happy for the main character, and I don't want to spoil the book, so I'm not going to say much about it. But yeah, I really liked the ending. I was really happy for her. So yeah, I really want a physical copy of this book so I can reread it. I was actually planning on rereading it in April, like when I upload this video, but I can't seem to find a cheap copy of it. So yeah, I guess I'm not rereading it in April. Maybe I will find a copy before I upload this video, but I highly doubt it. So yeah. Then the next two books I want to talk about are not by the same author, but the reason why I kind of grouped them together is because they are the two books on this list that I didn't like as much as the other ones. I think I gave both of them like 3 stars, I think. So it's not like a bad rating, but it's also not like a great rating. It has nothing to do really with the way that the autistic character is written. It's just a way that I liked the book itself and like the plot of it and stuff like that. So yeah, the autistic characters are still pretty good. It's just I didn't really fully like the plot. So yeah, one of those books is The Boy Who Steals Houses. Now, I had already read one book by this author, their other book, which is 1,000 Perfect Notes. I really enjoyed that book. It's my favorite book of theirs. I enjoyed this book less, even though I thought I would enjoy it more, because there's an autistic character, and in my opinion there's 2 autistic characters, which I know that's not like canon, but in my opinion there's 2. I'm pretty sure the author has also talked about it, how she kind of also thinks there's 2 autistic characters. So yeah, if she says that I'm correct, then I'm correct. So this has, again, an autistic main character, kind of, technically. And yeah, it is like a good book. Like, I didn't mind it, but I didn't like it as much as her other book. This book made me very, very nervous to read, even though her other book, 1,000 Perfect Notes, is a much heavier subject, I feel like. I still think that this book was heavier to read for me, and it was difficult to get through it because I was so nervous about the ending. And yeah, because of that, the experience of reading this just wasn't the greatest. But I think if I reread it, knowing what was gonna happen, now that I know what is gonna happen, I feel like I would enjoy it much more. So yeah, I am planning on rereading this book someday, and I think I would enjoy it more then. So yeah, it's still a really good book. Has autism representation, again, 2 people technically. And yeah, it is really good. And I do also recommend her other book. The author's other book doesn't have an autistic main character, but the author themselves is autistic, so you will be supporting an autistic author. So yeah. Then finally, we're at the last book on this list, which is really great because I really want to stop filming for today and just relax. But yeah, the last book on this list is again a book that I didn't fully enjoy. It has nothing to do really with the autistic character, but just in the way that a specific sentence was written, which I know that sounds really weird for me to dislike an entire book just because of one sentence. But I think I read this book at the wrong time, where I read it when I was going through a lot of medical trauma. And so to read a sentence like the sentence I read in this book, it really just hit me bad. And I stopped reading this book for like a week and I cried about it and it wasn't good. But this book is still really well loved by other people. Even non-autistic people have read this book because it's so popular. And that book is The Kiss Quotient, which, yes, this book is very popular. Yeah, a lot of people love it. I didn't really. Again, I feel like this is one of the books that, like, I should reread it and give it a second chance and just go into it knowing that that sentence exists and it won't hurt me that bad. I'm not gonna read the sentence out. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in my Goodreads review, so if you just check my Goodreads, you can read it, I think. But yeah, anyway, like, I still liked this book. It was a bit heavy on, like, the, 18 rated stuff, and I wasn't used to reading that. And because of that, the rating is also a bit lower because I never give books with like a lot of like 18 rated stuff, like 5 stars, just because that stuff makes me like uncomfortable to read. So this wasn't gonna be a 5-star anyway, but yeah, I still liked it. The sentence made me uncomfortable, but I feel like that won't be the case for everyone. Like, not everyone will look at the sentence and go, that is a very bad sentence. So yeah, it's still a good book. A lot of people enjoy it. I'm sure that like a lot of people who watch this video have already read this book, because this book is definitely like the most popular book on this list. And that's also why I mentioned it last, because I feel like a lot of people already know about this book. So yeah, let's just stop talking about it, I guess. But this book is also written by an autistic author. So yeah. So those were all of the books I wanted to talk about in today's video. I know there's not a lot. I really need to read more books with autistic main characters. I do have some more books with autistic main characters, but I haven't read them yet just because I don't want to read them all at once and then not have like a good book with a good autistic main character for like years to read. So yeah, I do still have some books on my shelves that I can read with autistic main characters and by autistic authors, but I'm just like saving them up a bit. So yeah, now on this list I also didn't really put any like characters that I headcanon as autistic, meaning they're not actually canonly autistic. I did mention a couple, but those books also actually had autistic characters. So yeah, I didn't mention any of those because if I did, this list would be much longer, and that list would also be a bit like, I don't know, just like my own opinion, because I could probably mention one character right now that I headcanon as autistic, and everyone's gonna be like, huh? Like, how is that character autistic? Like, it's a bit like subjective. So I would like to make a video about like all the characters that I headcanon as autistic, but I didn't want to put them on this list because this is just for the actual characters that are, on paper autistic. So yeah, that's why I didn't add them on this list. I also just want to say that like I wanted to talk about this for a little bit in this video, but I couldn't find a correct like place in the video to like talk about it. So I'm just gonna say it now at the end, I guess, even though most people have probably stopped watching by now. But that is that a lot of people have already talked about this on Twitter, is that a lot of authors will oftentimes write autistic characters, especially guys. They'll write them as autistic, but then they'll say, oh, he's not autistic, he's just a bit moody. And a lot of autistic people to that will be like, no, you literally wrote him as autistic. like that character is autistic. You wrote them like that. And again, it's oftentimes like guys, like grown men, they'll be like very moody and grumpy, like those like emotionally unavailable like love interests in like books. Like you probably know what I'm talking about. So those very stereotypical guys, like most of the time those people are written as autistic, but y'all just call them like emotionally unavailable, and I'm like, no, you just wrote them as autistic. Like that's an autistic character, and you just didn't realize it for some reason. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, about how a lot of the headcanons that I have for autistic characters, they're not those characters, because first of all, I don't read a lot of books with those kind of guys in it, but second of all, that's just too obvious, you know? Whereas, you know, a lot of the characters that I headcanon as autistic, it's a bit less obvious and usually a bit more obscure. Not like people from very popular books, more just like a bit less popular books. But I could also do like a video about like characters that I headcanon in not just books, but also TV shows and movies and stuff like that. If you guys are interested in that, then tell me, I guess. Maybe I'll make it a video for like next year Autism Acceptance Month. So yeah, we'll see, I guess. Anyway, I'm gonna stop this video now because again, I really want to stop filming because I just want to relax. So yeah, I am gonna stop this video here. I hope you enjoyed this video, got some book recommendations. Put your favorite books with autistic main characters in the comments, because I will, like, you know, want to read them if you think that they're good. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and bye.